hear it on their own screen, or they're just not have to leave, we'll have it for later on so you can get to it. So we're recording right now, just so everyone knows, we're recording about directions for the summary for Chapter 2, Ember, Part 2. Let's go ahead and write that right here so we know what our chapter page or our assignment page is going to be about. This is going to come in really handy, especially when we get back into the classroom and you have to turn assignments in. We want you to make sure that to label this so that we know what we're doing. And so I know which assignment I need to be grading. Right here, I'm going to put COE for City of Ember. I like to shortcut it. Then what I want to do is I want to put here Chapter 2. And boys and girls, I know I want to make sure that everybody's coming on in on time at 12 noon, so you don't miss out on any of the sessions. I see some people that are coming in a little bit later. Try to make sure if you can to get here on time, so that I know there's a problem. Sometimes you might have trouble logging in or you might get on. But if you can, make sure you get right on time so we can start right away and you don't miss on anything. Henry, I see your hand raised, so go ahead. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just make sure you're muting your camera or muting your muting your microphone. Jace, I don't see your hand raised, so I think you might have forgotten to mute your microphone. But if you do have a question, just keep it raised, and when I'm able to stop, I'll be able to take a look and answer any questions for this one. We have City of Ember, Chapter 2, and this is our summary, and this is for Part 2 of Chapter 2. So we're going to put here Part 2. I use a fancy Roman numeral. You can use the number 2 if you want to as well. So just to go over one more time, we should have your name. I was on the top right-hand side with 8/11/2020. On the left-hand side, you want to have City of Ember, Chapter 2, Summary, Part 2. The next part I want you to have is when we do a summary, we always include a space to write our summary words. I want to go ahead and label that right here on the left side, summary words. Here you want to write about one summary word per page. If you're reading the digital version, sometimes it's a longer page, so you may want to write 2 or 3 words per page, just so you can remember what the story is about. If it's a really, really long page and you're only writing one summary word, you may not get enough to remember what's going on in the story. So use as many as you think you can to remember it. If you're not sure, if it's a really, really long page on the digital version, you can do that. Boys and girls, as you come on board, just to make sure that you take a look at what we're doing. We're writing on our summary today. And looks like I'm having some trouble getting a few of these guys. So that's why it's no worries if we're having trouble getting people in. Ava, just go ahead and mute your microphone if you're, and just raise your hand if you have a question or something. If it's accidentally muted, just go ahead and we'll just mute those. So if you do, please make sure you use the hand raising thing. I just want to make sure you have it accidentally going on here. So if you guys aren't sure about how to do that, just make sure you raise your hand so that we're able to get on. I'm going to go on for the rest of this. Aiden, I noticed that you're trying to get in, and I'm trying to let you in. Hopefully you just got in. Looks like there are some difficulties with it, but you haven't missed much. I want you to go ahead and take a look at your paper. It should be summary words right now. I want you to do this. I want you to put right here space for your summary words. And then next down below, we're going to put space for our summary sentence. You can put it right about by the hole is, and that's fine. If you have questions, please make sure that you raise your hand, but please don't unmute. That way it keeps the sound level pretty low on the recordings. All right, summary sentence. We'll leave space right there. And then boys and girls, thanks for coming on. Make sure that if you're just joining us, make sure that you take a look at what we're doing up on the screen. We're doing Chapter 2. If there were some technical difficulties, I understand, but if you can, next time, make sure that you try to get here right around 12 o'clock so that we are able to get started as soon as possible. You don't miss much. All right, we're going to go and take a look at our what we've got. We've got City of Ember, Chapter 2, Summary Part 2, and we've got Mr. Yates, or your name, number, date, summary words, and your summary sentence. What's most important here now is we are going to leave some space for, oh, it looks like we're just having some technical difficulties with some of you guys. So I know some of you guys came in and you're right on time, and then it looks like you're getting booted out by accident. So that's no fault of your own, but I'll let you back on in, and I'll be recording this just in case. Let's go ahead and about 4 lines down, you're going to go ahead and put rubric. Now let's make it about 5 or 6. Rubric is what you're going to put on here to help you to know what Mr. Yates looks for when I grade your summaries. When we look at them, we want to make sure that you know what helps you to get the best summary you can. So we're going to put rubric here, and this is going to be pretty much the same every single time we do a rubric for our summaries. So eventually I'll start asking you like, hey, could you tell me what that is? Could you tell me what the next part of the rubric is? But for these first couple times, you'll probably need to just listen to me to write them down. Our first one is going to go a little checkbox right here. The checkbox is just a way to remind you that as you do your summary words and as you write your summary here to get it ready to put into Microsoft Forms, these are the things that Mr. Yates is going to be checking for to make sure that you have them when you turn it in. Maisie, you have a question?
Is it okay that I wrote like my name and the date on the same side as the stuff, because I have enough room?
Usually what I do, Maisie, is the only reason I like it this way, and it's okay for right now, you don't have to erase it, but just for future reference, I like it on this side because a lot of times I'll have papers kind of like stacked up. And so I usually like to sort it out so I can see the name this way a lot easier, so I can keep them all organized. So it does help me to page through it. And then I can have this side as my place to have the information. It's just a way to help me organize my papers, but it's not the end of the world if you did it that way. But from now on, just go ahead and do it the other way, just to make it consistent for me, okay?
Okay.
All right, thanks, Maisie. All right, let's go on down to our rubric. Now, a rubric is how I'm going to grade you. That means it's sort of a list of the things that I want you to be able to make sure you include in your summary to make sure that it is going to be the best possible summary. The first thing I want you to put right here is your summary should have, and you don't have to write these words, but I want you to have, make sure that you're muting your camera as you come on. Boys and girls, if you're not sure how to do that, just make sure you take a look at your camera thing and just turn it off. Thank you. We are recording this, so I want to make sure that we don't have any student video on here as much as possible. All right, Maisie, go ahead and just put your hand down. It looks like you might have forgotten to leave your hand up. So if you have another question, just unmute. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and continue here. A rubric is how I want you to be graded. The first thing is cups. And that abbreviation stands for capital letters, usage, that makes the sentence sounds right, punctuation, and make sure things are spelled correctly. By now, you've been reading enough of City of Ember. You should know how to spell Lena's name, even though we kind of argue about how to pronounce it. You should also know how to spell Dune's name correctly and words like Ember. Any word that's in the text that you're using for your summary, you should be able to spell them correctly, along with those small little words that we've been learning throughout the years, like the, where, when, all those kind of small words. We should be spelling them correctly by now, too. So focus your spelling, punctuation, usage, and capitalization for cups. Our next most important thing, we'll make another checkbox for this. And this one, I'm actually going to be putting a star by it, just to remind myself, if anything else, make sure you focus on this. Summary tells what, and it could be the chapter, it could be the book, it could be the story, whatever we're going to ask you to summarize. But for right now, I'm just going to say summary tells what the passage, that means whatever we're reading, was mainly about. So I put a star by that one because if anything about a summary, this is the most important thing. It should tell what the passage was mainly about. All right, let's go ahead. Maisie, do you have a question?
on my screen it shows that my hand is down.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. All right. So let's take a look at our rubric one more time, boys and girls. We have cups. Summary tells what the passage was mainly about. And remember our little mini lesson earlier where I talked to you about vague? That means it really doesn't say anything. It just says, well, like Lena and Dude, we're doing stuff in Ember. That's what we're talking about here. Making sure that you give me the details about what the passage was mainly about and not be vague. Two more things I want you to focus on for when you're doing a summary. I'll write these under here on my checklist. I also want you to make sure that you have a starter. And write that there to make sure that you have your checklist. We have cups. Summary tells what the passage was mainly about. You have a starter. And if you remember about a starter, that basically is this passage or the chapter or the book or the article or whatever we're reading. In this case, we're going to be reading a chapter, or this part of a chapter is mainly about. So right now we've got cups. Summary tells what the passage is mainly about. You're writing down have a starter. Our fourth thing on our checklist, and our final one for today, is going to be $12 words. I want your summary sentence to have 12 words only. No more, no less. It helps us to focus our summary so you're using the best words possible for what it's mainly about. So I want you to take a look at what we've got right now. It's got cups. Summary tells what the passage is mainly about. Have a starter and 12 words only. Make sure you've got all that on there. Boys and girls, we're going to change up this a little bit because we're going to be doing a read aloud today with this. So what I'd like to do is do the read aloud with this summary paper. We'll take a brief break after we're done with the read aloud so you can stretch out a little bit and move around. And then after we do our summary read aloud, I'll give you time. I'll give you the directions about how to use I'll give you a little bit of time to work on your summary sentence. And then we'll go over the question of the day part 2 and give you time to work on that because there's quite a lot of detail. I want you to see what to do on that one. What we'll do first is we're going to do our read aloud now. And while we do the read aloud, I'd like you to be listening. And I want you to use this paper right here for your summary words. That means we'll pause every once in a while, probably since we're doing the digital version, about every 2 or 3 paragraphs. And they'll say, let's take a pause and I want you to write a summary word right here. What I may ask you to do is I may ask you to go ahead and tell us one of those summary words by raising your hand. If we ask you at random, just tell me what summary word would you have written down for that part. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to take a minute here to open up the book. I'm going to leave this over here on the side so that it'll be over so it won't be in the way. And I'm going to open up the City of Ember digital book. But before I do that, I want to stop recording here so we can separate this lesson out. So we'll go ahead and stop the lesson. Stop the recording. Don't leave the meeting, boys and girls.